This is the Experience Pros Radio Show. Got an opinion or want to ask us a question? Email radio@experiencepros.com or message us on the Experience Pros Facebook page, and we'll interact with you live on the show.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Experience Pros Radio Show. We do want to interact with you live on the program. You can reach out to us by way of our Facebook Live video. You can leave a comment. We'd be happy to connect you into the program, or give us a ring. It's 303-632-4160. Listen, according to the Centers for Disease Prevention and Control, 1 in 5 school children between the ages of 6 and 19 are overweight. This is an alarming fact, considering being overweight can lead to increased risk of diabetes, asthma, sleep apnea, heart disease, and many other issues. And our next guest, Ken Krieg, is trying to address that problem with a new children's book called Little 2. Krieg says life should be fun, rewarding, and exciting. But when one overindulges in even the simple things like ice cream treats, it can lead to major problems. Young children need all the help they can get to learn the lesson of things in moderation and how it applies to life. Ken Krieg, welcome to the Experience Pros Radio Show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Very nice to have you on the program. Listen, this is an issue that is affecting our kids. I'm actually surprised that it's only 1 in 5 school children. I would be more likely to believe that it's a bigger issue than this. But if the CDC says 20% of our kids are overweight, let's go with that. What's the problem? What's the big deal? It's just a few pounds, right?
Yeah, except very often it leads to a lifetime of not just a few pounds, but a lot of pounds.
And not only do we have the health issues we want to talk about here for a minute, but we also have the social issues. Kids who are overweight tend to get teased and bullied, yeah?
Yeah, they do. I was overweight as a kid, and my very first day at school, I got tagged with the nickname Lard.
Oh.
And that kind of hurt. In fact, that hurt for a long, long time.
Right. And you know, in this day and age, Ken, and I'm sure you're aware, it doesn't take much but a nickname like that to be translated into cyberbullying or schoolhouse bullying or whatnot, which leads to low self-esteem. Low self-esteem leads to depression. Depression leads to suicide. And then we've got this statistic that is very much valid and happening here in our culture today.
You're right. It's a snowballing effect, and I agree with you. I'm surprised the numbers are a little higher than 20%.
Right.
And my fear is they're going to go higher than that, because it's more than just overindulgence in food that put on pounds. It's lack of exercise, and that's occurring more and more and more with computers and computer games and telephones and all those kinds of things. So there's a lot of things can cause this.
Let me ask you this, and I'm going to come back to the computer games and whatnot, because I think you've got more to say on that. But you called the title of your book Little 2. And now that's an interesting title. What goes behind that?
Well, that is kind of an interesting title for a book about a little girl that wanted to be a dancer, and spent a weekend with her grandparents, and in the process they asked her what she'd like to have to eat, and she said, "I want ice cream every morning for breakfast." Now that's a kind of unusual request, but they said no problem. So far the story is true. That actually happened to my wife and I and our grandkids.
Oh my!
And what we did to help them learn a lesson. The lesson being that, yes, you can have some treats like that, but you can't overindulge. And so we took ice cream, put it in the little plastic condiment cup like you get at restaurants and whatnot.
Oh, sure.
They hold about a tablespoon. We put them in the freezer, and every morning we each had one little container of ice cream. Now, one's not going to hurt you. Half a dozen, that's a whole different story.
Right.
And that's what kind of occurred in the book. The little girl dreamed that she ate more, and the more she ate, of course, the heavier she got. 2 comes from her interpretation of a tutu that her mother and father gave her for Christmas. And they said, "This is a tutu." She had no idea what that meant. She assumed it was a size. And so she just called it her little two.
Look at that. All right. Very, very cool. And you're targeting what age group with this book?
Targeting ages probably 3 to maybe 7, something like that.
All right. Good deal. So let's go back and talk a little bit. You mentioned computer games and whatnot. Let's talk. What, in your estimation, you tie a direct connection between electronics and childhood obesity. Most people would not make that connection, but I don't argue it. I think that you've got something to say about it. What is that connection?
Well, it goes further back than the modern day electronics. It goes back to, when I was a kid and television first came along. And all of a sudden we had some reason to sit on our fannies at home in the house and not do anything except watch television. Where before we got out and played, that was our form of entertainment. And that has just snowballed now with the use of our modern day electronics.
Kids are born with a cell phone in their hands and the ability to type with their thumbs. Ken, what's the answer to that? How do we put the toothpaste back in the tube? Is it possible?
I don't think it is. I think what you have to do is minimize the spread of the toothpaste that's falling out. And the only way I can think of to do that is simply, as adults, teach kids to get back outside or into the gymnasium or wherever they can get some physical exercise and do that and make an interesting game out of it. You can even make a social game out of some exercises, and I don't know a better answer to it. And maybe that's not a very good one, but that's the best one I know.
I can't fault you for trying, and at least raising awareness to the issue. That's the big deal, is that, so many times, like you just described, in your scenario with your grandkids, you've got a situation where, oftentimes there are so many variables, and we ourselves, the parents in this case, can be part of the problem, or we can take a proactive approach and become part of the solution. The book called Little Two, where do you want folks to pick up a copy of that?
Best place for them to pick up a copy is my website. That's Ken Krieg, and that's spelled Krieg, author.com. KenKriegAuthor.com. That's KenKriegAuthor.com. It says here in my notes that you live in Wyoming. What part of Wyoming do you live in, Ken? Buffalo, Wyoming.
Buffalo. I spent 10 years of my life up in Sundance, so I know the area very, very well. Well, I'm grateful for your time and for what you're trying to accomplish with your book. I wish you the very best of luck with that.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show.
Absolutely. That's Ken Krieg. You want more information about the book called Little Two, Tackling the Issue of Child Obesity, check out KenKriegAuthor.com. We'll be back right after these messages. You're listening to the home of positive business talk. This is the Experience Pros Radio Network.
You're listening to the Experience Pros Radio Show, America's home for positive business